Nya, nya.
Victim of circumstance.
Hold on. Welcome to another episode of the Flashback Cartoon Hour. I'm your loving bald host with the most, Nick, wise guy, Lascola. And today, from our sister podcast, welcome to the Goon Shows, I have the one, the only.
They call me Grant Yuck Yuck.
Granty Poo Poo. Grant, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you. Have you done any of these before? Did you do Plastic Man?
No, I don't think so. I think this is my first time being on this cartoon hour.
Woohoo! Okay, so today we are covering the new Three Stooges cartoon. And before we really get into it, Grant, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the Three Stooges and what the Three Stooges mean to you?
So, the Three Stooges mean a lot to me. When I was a little boy, I was around the house looking for things to watch, and my father recommended the Three Stooges. I gave it a watch, and safe to say it was one of the greatest comedic experiences I've ever had. It was very enjoyable, funny, all that good stuff.
It really is funny. My dad also got me into the Three Stooges. Way back in the day, he always had them on VHSs. He had them on, he bought like literally all the years on DVD. Starting off with, the Curly years into the Shemp years, even though technically Shemp started first. One thing I will say is it's pretty funny. Now, I'm sure that there are girls out there that do indeed like the Stooges. So, ladies, please don't attack me online. I'm just a sweet bald boy. But what I am going to say is that in my personal experience, I've not found many ladies that do indeed like the Stooges. It seems like this slapstick comedy is really kind of like a boy-orientated thing. Most girls that I've ever tried to, like, girlfriends from the past, my wife now, most people that I try and show just think it's stupid, and it's just not. The Stooges came out from like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s into the 60s, and it's so fucking good. To this day, it's literally timeless. What we're going into with the show now, the show was from the 60s, so at this point, Curly and Shemp had both died, but we'll go into that in a little bit. Let's dive into it, shall we?
I actually just wanted to piggyback off of what Nick was saying earlier. My girlfriend hates the Three Stooges, just like she hates all good comedic, like she hates Monty Python. Yeah. She thinks it's stupid. I think it's hilarious.
It's and that's another thing is we both bonded really over the Stooges when we first met, and Monty Python and all these silly random kind of humorous things. I forget what I was gonna say.
That you're bald and I love you and all that. Yeah, so me and Nick bonded over the Three Stooges at our work. We were talking about different TV shows, and lo and behold, I don't know how it happened, but the Three Stooges were brought up in conversation, and we both loved the Three Stooges. So we would get out after work late nights and just watch the Three Stooges for hours.
Yeah, nothing really beat that because I worked pretty far away from. We worked at this place called Red Heat, which is really like a Massachusetts type, like specific restaurant. And when we bought, I was a cook, and Grant, you did.
I was a serving assistant, so I was just like cleaned up. clean up tables and stuff like that.
Exactly. And so we bonded, and I would come over his house, and at the time, I would just like crash here because it would be the easiest thing for me, especially if I had work early the next morning. But, smoking some weed, sitting down, watching the Stooges was just so fucking funny.
I mean, one of my favorite episodes, A Plumbing We Will Go?
Oh yeah, one of the best.
That was like one of my first episodes, and like what an introduction be introduced into the Three Stooges by watching one of the greatest episodes.
Literally the greatest episodes. Definitely my dad's favorite episode too.
Yeah, they all shine in that.
When the water is coming through the lights, it tickles me to this day.
He's like, I gotta get this water out of this bathroom, and he starts just drilling a hole.
All right, so let's get into the show itself. The new Three Stooges was an American animated series that ran from October 1965 to September 1966. The show consisted of 156 individual cartoons and 40 live-action segments that would make up the opening and closing segments of each episode. 4 cartoons were produced to correspond thematically with the 40 live-action open and closing sequences so that one live-action sequence could serve as the wraparound for the 4 different cartoons. The series format would follow the Stooges as they would consistently cause shenanigans with whatever new job they had gotten for that episode.
So each episode ran for about 20 minutes each, with cartoon segments running for about 5 minutes each, and as Nick mentioned, they did throw in some live action in the mix. I thought it was actually a very good change of pace. The series starred the voices of Mo Howard, Larry Fine, Joe Doretta, Curly Joe,
Joe Dorita, real quick.
Joe Dorita. Okay. Emil Sitka. Okay. Margaret Carey, Hall Smith, Paul Frees. Mo, Larry, and Curly Joe would star in the live-action segments, usually with Emil Sitka co-starring as the straight man. The show was created and produced by cartoonist Norman Maurer, who was Mo's son-in-law and also the trio's film agent at this time.
What I would like to say about Emil Sitka is, Grant, you probably recognize him from a lot of the Stooges. They actually consider Emil Sitka the 4th unofficial Stooge. You know, the guy that has like the gray hair, always with glasses, usually in a ton of the episodes.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw him in one of the cartoons, actually, when we were reviewing this material, actually.
So he was officially the 4th. They actually did give him a title as the 4th Stooge, especially near the end of the Stooges run. But he never got to tour officially with the title as a Stooge. Now, Margaret Carey, cool little fun fact, she's usually the female in all the opening live action segments that play in there with the Stooges. Emil Sitka plays like the straight man, and Margaret Carey would always be in there as, again, whatever female would be in the segment. Cool thing about Margaret Carey is that she actually was the inspiration for the look of Tinkerbell in the original Peter Pan. So just think of like the blonde, petite, with the hair up. That is specifically made to look like a young Margaret Carey. Cool little fun fact on that part. Edward Burns, who had directed the Stooges during most of the Shemp era from 1945 to 1952, was brought in to write and direct the series. There was a 3-way collaboration between production companies, Normandy Productions, Cambria Studios, and Heritage Productions.
Most of the cartoons ended up with the trio running into the horizon after accidentally causing havoc at their current jobs and for getting in trouble. Almost every single Three Stooges episodes ends up in them causing havoc at some sort of job, posing as plumbers, posing as furniture movers, and they just cause a whole bunch of havoc. It's hilarious. If you guys have watched the Stooges, you guys know what we're talking about. The cartoons were unusual for Cambria in that they did not use Synchro Vox, Cambria's patented technique, which used filmed footage of the voice actors' mouths over the top of still frames. The pilot cartoon, That Little Old Bomb Maker, featured a unique live-action wraparound that was not reused on other cartoons. I actually noticed that while we were watching the cartoons, and I was wondering what that technique was called, and what it was, and now I know.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Nyuk, nyuk, nyuk. So, to avoid any potential licensing problems with this, Cambria Studios did not use any of the past Three Stooges theme songs, including Three Blind Mice or Listen to the Mockingbird, even though both had lapsed into the public domain at that time. Everybody knows the Three Stooges jingles. If you heard it, well, you'll recognize it immediately.
Wah, wah, wah,
Wah,
wah.
wah.
Wah, 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 wah.
Yep. Just like he did. Just like that one. Likewise, the on-screen title used a numeral 3 to avoid infringing on any trademark Columbia Pictures might have held on that name. The Three Stooges, several of the music pieces used on the show were also used for the series Bozo's Big Top. What is Bozo's Big Top?
Bozo the Clown was like a really big time TV show when like our parents were kids. Like ask your dad, my dad, everyone knows Bozo.
Okay. Oh, I'm a clown.
Allegedly, the series proved to be a financial headache for the Stooges. In accordance to their contract, Cambria Studios' distributor was supposed to forward quarterly statements to the trio to keep them abreast of the show's profits. Norman Moore recalled receiving only 1 or 2 statements over a 5-year period, ultimately leading to a lawsuit. The judge presiding over the case knew little about the film or television industry and ruled in favor of Cambria. The Stooges appealed the decision in 1975, leading to the victory in their favor. However, it changed nothing in regard to the distributor's failure to provide the necessary profit statements to Normandy Productions, and by the time the case was decided, both Larry and Moe had passed away.
So, in 1992, all the cartoons from the original 1965 and 66 series were repackaged for syndication by DIC Entertainment with the original voices dubbed by other voice actors and feature newly animated closing segments featuring the Stooges. Although animated portions of the show were last aired in syndication on WGN TV in the Chicago area in the early 1980s and 1990s, repackaged and redubbed by new voice actors and distributed at that time by Deke Animation City and Jeffrey Scott Productions. It is occasionally seen on Me TV. It also aired in Japan on TV Tokyo. This series was generally well received, even though it had limited animation, and was able to inspire creations of other cartoon shows based on the early 30s, 40s, and 50s comedy acts, like Laurel and the Hardy cartoon, which ran from 66 to 67 for about 156 episodes, and the Abbott and Costello cartoon show. I'm not too familiar with that one, but that ran from 1967 to 68. Neither Laurel or Hardy were involved in their cartoon series, as both had unfortunately passed away by that time. And only Bud Abbott was alive when his respective show was created.
Yeah, Abbott and Costello was pretty cool. Abbott was like the tall, skinny, like straight man. Always, he was kind of like the Moe of that duo. And Lou Costello was like short and fat, and he was like the really funny one.
So were they kind of like slapstick humor, kind of like?
Yeah, like Abbott would like slap the shit out of Costello, and like Costello would do all like the goofy, silly stuff. So instead of 3 of them, there was only the duo.
Okay, I could see a duo working well. I mean, there of course there's nothing like the original, but there obviously a duo like that can work wonders.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there was never like a Marx Brothers cartoon, at least not that one that I could find, which I just recently showed you, the Marx Brothers, which is like just about on par with the Three Stooges. Not as much like slapstick. Like, they're not beating the shit out of each other, but it's more like funny, silly, goofy, zany things happening all at once.
And like the word play is kind of similar with how they not a lot of slapstick, but the way they talk to each other and all that. It's very, very Stooges.
Yes. The show was the first of the Three Stooges animated appearances, followed by 2 appearances in the new Scooby-Doo movies, episodes The Ghastly Ghost Town and The Ghost of the Red Baron, and also another animated series by Hanna-Barbera called The Robonic Stooges. This series was also developed and produced by Norman Maurer. It features Moe, Larry, and Curly as junkyard-based clumsy, crime-fighting cyborg superheroes who fight crime with their often malfunctioning bionic powers and are given assignments via film projector from their frustrated boss, Agent 000, who runs the Superhero Employment Agency. All animated appearances after the new Three Stooges had the Stooges voiced by other voice actors due to the death of Larry and Moe. So at this point, I figure let's dive into the Stooges a little bit. Let's dive into the voice actors. Okay, so let's start off with the boss himself, Moe Howard. Born Moses Harry Horwitz on June 19, 1897 in Brooklyn, New York. He died May 4th in 1975 at the age of 77 in Los Angeles, California. He also goes by the name Harry Howard, and he was active from the years 1909 to 1975. He married Helen Schonberger in the year 1925. He had 2 kids, including Joan Howard Maurer, who married, Norman, who married Norman. He was related to fellow Stooges Curly Howard and Shemp Howard. Moe Howard tried many attempts at gaining show business experience, especially by singing in a bar with his older brother Shemp, until their father put a stop to it. In 1914, he joined a minstrel show troupe on a Mississippi River showboat for the next 2 summers, with an act they called Howard and Howard, a study in black. At the same time, they worked for a rival vaudeville circuit without makeup. In 1921, he joined Ted Healy in a vaudeville routine, and in 1923, Moe saw Shemp in the audience during a theater performance and yelled at him from the stage. Shemp responded by heckling Moe, and the 2 brothers' amusing bickering during the performance resulted in Healy's immediately hiring Shemp Howard as a permanent part of the act. Moe retired in June of 1925 after marriage to his wife, Helen, and went into real estate with his mother. Meanwhile, Healy's act with frequent stooge, Shemp Howard, went on a national fame in the Schubert Brothers' A Night in Spain, which had a successful Broadway run from 1927 to 1928. After the show had ended, in late November, Healy signed for the Schubert's new revue, A Night in Venice, and recruited Moe out of retirement to rejoin the act in December 1928. So one thing to know about Ted Healy is he started with the Stooges, especially in like the first few movies. He was in the first movie Soup to Nuts, which aired in 1930, and featured Healy and his 4 Stooges, Moe, Shemp, Larry, and Fred Sanborn. A disagreement with Healy led Moe, Larry, and Shemp to strike out on their own, officially creating the Three Stooges. After the long run with the Stooges, which ended in about the 60s, the revitalized trio starred in 6 feature-length movies. This is officially after Curly and Shemp had died. Have Rocket Will Travel in 59, Snow White and the Three Stooges in 61, The Three Stooges Meet Hercules, and The Three Stooges in Orbit. The Three Stooges Go Around the World in a Daze, and Outlaws is Coming. And that went all the way up to 1965. Moe kept his friendship with Larry into the very late years, even when Larry was really falling ill and ended up dying. Mo was always by his side, always by his bedside. They were indeed best friends. Mo died due to lung cancer at the age of 77, like I had said earlier, on May 4th in 1975. And he will forever go down in history as the lead stooge.
So now you were mentioning Larry Fine. I'm going to be picking up on Larry Fine.
Pick it up.
So Larry Fine, otherwise known as Louis Feinberg, was an American comedian, actor, and musician. He is best known as a member of the comedy act The Three Stooges, and is often called, quote-unquote, the Middle Stooge. He was born October 5th, 1902, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He unfortunately passed away in January 24th of 1975 in Los Angeles, California. He was active from the years 1923 to 1970. He was married to Mabel Haney from 1926 until her death in 1967. Some interesting facts about his early life. Fine was born into a Russian Jewish family at 3rd and South Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on October 5th, 1902. His father, Joseph Feinberg, and mother, Fanny Lieberman, owned a watch repair and jewelry shop. In his early childhood, Fine's arm was accidentally burned with acid that his father used to test jewelry for its gold content. The young Fine picked up the bottle and accidentally spilled it on his forearm, causing extensive damage to it. That sounds like Larry. It really does. Fine's parents later gave him violin lessons to help strengthen the damaged muscles in his forearm. He became so proficient in it that his parents wanted to send him to a European music conservatory, but the plan was thwarted due to the outbreak of World War I at the time. Fine later played the violin in the Stooge films and a variety of Stooge episodes. To further strengthen his damaged arm, Fine took up boxing in his teens, winning one professional bout. His father opposed to Larry's fighting in public, put an end to his brief boxing career. A little bit of interesting facts about some of his early acting career. At an early age, Fine started performing as a violinist in vaudeville. Between 1925 and 1928, while the master of ceremonies at Chicago's Rainbow Gardens, Fine met Shemp Howard and Ted Healy, who were performing in the Schubert Brothers' A Night in Spain. Since Howard was leaving the play for a few months, they asked him to be a replacement Stooge. Fine joined Ted's other Stooges, Bobby Pincus and Sam Moody Braun. Howard returned in September 1928 to finish Spain's national tour. In 1929, Healy signed a contract to perform in Schubert's new revue, A Night in Venice. Healy brought Fine, Shemp Howard, and Mo Howard together for the first time as a trio. Mo, Larry, and Shemp, with Fred Sanborn, appeared in Venice from 1929 through March 1930. Fine, Shemp, Howard, and Mo Howard toured as Ted Healy and his Rocketeers. That spring and summer, they went to Hollywood in the summer to film Fox Studios' Soup to Nuts in 1930. Fine and the Howard brothers broke up with Healy after Soup to Nuts toured as Howard, Fine, and Howard. Three Lost Souls from the fall of 1930 to the summer of 1932. In July 1932, Fine and Mo Howard teamed up with Healy again, adding Curly Howard to the group. The new lineup premiered at Cleveland's RKO Palace Theater on August 27th, 1932, Shemp Howard split off to pursue a solo career. So some interesting facts about his final acting years and unfortunately his demise. In 1965, Mo Howard and Joe DeRita started a new TV comedy show, the new Three Stooges, a mixture of live and animated segments. The show produced good ratings, but the men were too old to do slapstick comedy well. Vine began showing signs of mental impairment, such as trouble delivering his lines.
And you can really hear it in these episodes. You can kind of hear him like slur his words a little bit. Pretty sad, but still overall, like I would say, it wasn't terrible for his acting in the later half of his here. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of slurring, but it's not like you can't really understand what he's saying.
Yeah, it's really not bad at all. Like he's still the same old goofy Larry Fine. You know, he's like you can tell like you know he's getting up there in age and all that, but it doesn't really affect him all that much. You know, he's still very goofy and, you know, the same Larry Fine that we all come to know and love over the decades of the Stooges.
Still plays well off of Mo, I must say.
Oh, absolutely. So Fine eventually moved to the Motion Picture County House, an industry retirement community in Woodland Hills, where he spent his remaining years and used a wheelchair during the last 5. Even in his paralyzed state, Fine did what he could to entertain the other patients and completed his, as told to, autobiography called A Stroke of Luck. He also received visits from Mo Howard. Fine remained accessible to Stooge fans, regularly hosting them despite his disability. When asked if spending his life as a Stooge was enjoyable, he answered, quote, "It wasn't fun, it was work, but it paid off good, so I enjoyed it," end quote. Like Curly Howard, Fine suffered severe additional strokes before his death on January 24th, 1975, at a nursing home in Woodland Hills at age 72. It's very sad. He was interred with his wife and son in a crypt at Glendale's Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Freedom Mausoleum Sanctuary of Liberation. Mo died 3 months later.
That was perfect, bro.
You're perfect. You're perfect.
All right, so now let's get into the final member of the Three Stooges, as in the cartoon. Not a lot of people might be aware of who Joe DeRita is because, fun fact, there were actually 6 Stooges in total. 7 if you count Emil Sitka, which I do because they've gone on record saying that he is one of us. But let's get back into Joe. Joe DeRita was born into a show business family. DeRita began performing at the age of 7. He played the burlesque circuit until 1942 when he went to headline in California stage shows. He toured with Randolph Scott and Bing Crosby for the USO during World War II. Joe made his film debut in The Doe Girls and continued to perform in films, radio, and television before ever even joining the Three Stooges. He was born on July 12th, 1909 in Philadelphia and died on July 3rd, 1993 in Los Angeles, California. Curly Joe married Esther M. Bear with me here, folks. Hartenstein, we're going to go with that, on July 13th, 1935, but divorced her in September 6th, 1965. He then went and married Jean Sullivan only a year later in December 28th, 1966, until he died in July 3rd, 1993. According to Emil Sitka, when DeRita was brought on board the Stooges, he was more or less an employee and not a full partner. Larry Fine threatened to quit the act completely unless Mo made him a full-time partner. He was the only non-Jewish member of the Three Stooges. He had English and French-Canadian ancestry. And following his death, he was interred at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery. What the fuck? I would love to be buried in a place called Valhalla, dude.
I mean, do a Viking.
Yeah, right.
Skull.
His tombstone reads the last Stooge, because he was the final Stooge.
He was the final Stooge. I mean, there's nothing like the original three, but Joe Dorita is he's still funny. Curly Joe.
It's funny you said that, because Dorita was called Curly Joe because he resembled the early Stooges member Curly Howard. Fat and graceful, respectfully. And because there had already been a Stooge named Joe, as in the previous guy right before him, Joe Besser, who, in my opinion, is bottom of the barrel for the Stooges. So they named him Curly Joe. When Joe Besser left the Three Stooges, Mo Howard made another attempt to bring Joe Dorita into the act, because originally, I think it was like back in 1946, they tried to bring him into the act, but he couldn't do it because he had, just like Shemp, he had a pretty big film career before ever even going into the Stooges. And even after, he was still doing stuff. The timing could not have been better. Joe had only 1 week left on his contract with Minsky when Mo had attempted to bring him in the second time. Joe was able to become a member of the Three Stooges as Curly Joe just before they began a series of feature films. So if you see any of the films that I had mentioned earlier, that's all Curly Joe in there. No other third member of the Stooges has been in that except the early stuff. Bless you. Which, like Soup to Nuts, had Shemp. Bless you again. To go into it, when Have Rocket Will Travel aired in 1959, they made $30,000 plus 25% of profit, and Split with Mo and Larry. Oh, he only made 25% of the profits, split with Mo and Larry. After Larry had defended and fought for Curly Joe, and by 1962, when they made the Three Stooges in orbit, he was having a full way split between Mo and Larry. So Larry, being the great guy that he is, really went to bat for Curly Joe. And, I like him. When rating him, the reason why I don't like Joe Besser so much is I felt like he kind of just let like Mo pushed him around, and like Shemp, Curly Joe, Curly, they all eventually like snip back at him. I mean, they get the shit beat out of them, but you know what I mean? They like all kind of have that like, oh yeah? Oh.
And they do like their little like, oh, you see that? And they hit it, and he hits Mo in the head. Like, yeah. I like that, but I didn't really watch a lot of Joe Besser, because to me, he wasn't all that funny. To me, he wasn't all that funny. When you got guys like Curly Joe, Curly, Mo, Larry, Shemp, of course.
Shemp.
Like, it's pretty hard when you have, like these expectations of these hilarious characters, and then he doesn't really fulfill that in my eyes.
Yeah, no, and I think it's just because the first two, I mean, like Shemp and Curly, they're Mo's brothers. So I guess on a certain level, they'll always be able to play off each other really well, because it's like you and Mitch, right? You guys, like, you've grown up together. You just know how to play off of each other.
Mitch is my brother.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like me and my brother Bobby, but like we always insult each other, but low key, like we like each other. But it's a thing we've been doing since we were kids.
Fellow Stooge.
It's all about playing off of each other. Now, I have a quote here from Curly Joe, and I think it kind of shows, but let me explain it. So his quote is, "I don't think the Three Stooges, quote unquote, were funny." And he said, "I'm not putting you on. I'm telling the truth. They were physical, but they didn't have any humor about them. Take, for instance, Laurel and Hardy. I can watch their films and I still laugh at them, and maybe I've seen them 4 or 5 times before. But when I see that pie or seltzer bottle, I know that it's not just lying around for no reason. It's going to be used for something. I was with the Stooges for 12 years, and it was very pleasant association, but I just don't think they were funny." And I think when you watch them, it kind of shows. Like it's like yes, obviously they're actors, so they're gonna put some like their heart and soul into it. But it's something about him and Joe Bessa too. Like it just seems like something was held back with them.
Something was off. Besides the original, like the original three, and then Curly, something was off.
So Grant, if you had to, why don't you rate the Stooges for me from favorite to least favorite out of the 6? Obviously, we'll put Joe Bessa down there.
Joe Bessa's in the ground.
Because you don't know really much of his stuff.
I don't really know a lot of his stuff. But
don't worry about it.
And when I've seen his stuff, I didn't really, wasn't that funny. I would say my favorite, differs to others' opinion, usually people say Curly. I'm a Shemp guy. Love Shemp. It goes Shemp, Curly, Mo, Larry, Dorita, and Bessa. Mm-hmm. So, I like obviously the 4. It's so hard to rank the 4. They all complement each other so well, and they do their own thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Bessa and Curly Joe, I haven't really watched enough of them, and when I've watched them, Curly Joe more than Bessa was generally the funnier out of the two. Mm-hmm. But I always when I think of the Three Stooges, I always draw back to Shemp, Mo, and Larry, and I try and visualize
who are your Stooges.
Yeah, and they just don't fulfill it in that eyes, because I grew up watching, Curly was the I was introduced with Curly first before Shemp.
I would assume most probably were, right?
Well, because I watched The Plumbing We Will Go. That was one of my very first ones. Yep. But in that same DVD, they had various episodes with Shemp. And I just have always gravitated towards Shemp. He's just...
I totally agree. Shemp is also my number 1 Stooge. I just think, he's underrated because everybody knows Curly. Everybody loves Curly. And don't get me wrong, Curly's fucking great. Curly's my number 2. It goes for me, Shemp, Curly. Honestly, number 3, probably Larry. I think Larry. I might put Larry over Mo. And at the end of the day, I love all of them.
They're all great. Well, but the first 4.
The first 4 I love. And then the other 2, I'm like, okay with. So yeah, it would go Shemp, Curly, Larry, Mo, Curly Joe, and Joe Bessa at the end. Again, it's the same thing. When you watch Curly Joe, when you watch Joe Bessa, it's not the first 2. It's not the same dynamic.
And what you mentioned that there's something missing.
Yeah, there's something missing there. But they gave it a go. But when you think about it, they probably knew at the time, like, we're just spot holders here. Like, no one's going to like us like they like the original guys. You know what I mean? And they probably knew that, and they were probably kind of upset about it because, they jumped in, but they know they'll never reach the height of Curly.
But that also possibly maybe the reason why they didn't think the show was funny, because maybe they got hate mail, maybe they've had some bad experiences with that stuff. And they're just like, well, I'm taking out in the show. I don't think it's funny. And it after they moved to Joe Bessa and Curly Joe obviously more so than Bessa was funnier. He embodied more of what it meant to be a Stooge.
I'll jump in. Yeah. So a cool little thing. Did you know, Grant, that actually Joe Bessa in his contract, it stated that he couldn't just be singled out, like he couldn't just be slapped up by himself if he was going to be hit. Larry had to be hit at the same time. So instead of like, like Mo coming up and be like, you motherfucking, instead it would be like, oh, you two knuckleheads, and like bonk their heads together kind of thing. Which I think in itself is like, what the fuck? Well, obviously it's not going to be at that peak. And this cartoon that we've been going over today kind of does the same thing. The slapstick of it really kind of gets brought down. It's more about like play on words and the animation, funny, like goofy things happening there. But like even during the live action things, you don't really see Mo beat the like hell out of the two. You might see like a couple whacks here or there, but they were really afraid of like, now kids are watching the show and stuff, and they didn't want to be like too violent for the time, it being the 60s and stuff. Back in like the 30s, they didn't give two fucks, but now everything's got to be censored and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it comes to times, I guess, even though the 60s weren't even that censored really, but compared to nowadays,
I love it because now they kind of easing up that. Well, because right, they made the TV rating system, so now it's like, oh, if this one's gonna be kind of more on the violent side, it's not for kids. It's like 7 up.
I think the rating for the Three Stooges would probably be a PG at most. Mm-hmm. They don't. The worst word they use is knucklehead.
Yeah.
They don't really, use like any type of language like that. They're it's kind of like clean humor.
Yeah.
It's clean humor. They say dumb things, they do dumb things, they slap each other.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Like we were talking in one episode, with they're in charge of a restaurant, and this guy comes in and he's like, I need water, and they give him water. He's like, I need food, and they're like, all right, we just made a stew, here's some stew. And Curly Joe pours the stew, hands the bowl over to Larry. Larry turns and then he stops and he goes, you knucklehead, there's a hair in this stew. And he pulls a rabbit out of this, like a full rabbit. And then Curly Joe goes, well, what do you expect? It's a rabbit stew. And then the rabbit in Curly Joe's hand goes, he goes, yeah, you can't please anybody nowadays.
Yeah, I actually just watched that episode yesterday.
Yeah.
It was really, really funny.
So on a letter scale from F to A+, what would you rate this show?
So if we're talking about the cartoon, I've been watching the Three Stooges for 15 plus years. Yeah. I recently have started watching the cartoon. I would say the cartoon is a B. I would say it's a B, right? It's funny animation, just goofy. But the episodes are really, really short. And they kind of, for me, they lack that same passion, I guess. I liked seeing their faces while they're doing it, because there's different types of emotions that are just, they couldn't animate back in the 50s and 60s in the cartoon, whereas in the live action they could just capture their real-time reactions. I get a little technical, but but yeah, it's a B. It's solid. It's funny. If we're talking about the live action show, that's an A+.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, so that's the cartoon. How did you feel about the live action portion? Would you say that you liked the live action segments of this show better than the cartoon segment of the show? When you were sitting there watching it, like, which did you want to see more?
So, like I said, I've only started watching it recently.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy the show. Like that's not what I'm saying. I did enjoy the show. Yeah. It was, I liked the good blend. They had a good blend. Some episodes were just 4 minutes and were very bare bones, and some other episodes are about 8 minutes, and they had the live action portion, and then just it's like something to do with what they're doing. And
Oh, because you saw it on. How did you watch on YouTube?
yeah, so I watched this on YouTube. They have there's a channel that has a whole bunch of Three Stooges cartoon episodes and a playlist, and you can just go on your YouTube searching browser, type in Three Stooges cartoon, and you can watch to your desire.
Yeah, they do have a ton of the episodes. I think they even on a different channel that I watched them originally on. I'm pretty sure they have the full live action and cartoon all mixed together, like the real episode. You can find those on YouTube, but if you have Peacock, and I do believe that Peacock might even be free if you like watch it with the ads. Peacock has all the episodes of the new Three Stooges also. So you can, if you guys want to go after listening to this and go check it out and give your own opinion, honestly, come back and tell us because we would love to hear from you guys. But yeah, definitely check that out. Peacock also. Cock.
Pee on cock.
Yeah, so I also would give this show a B for sure. I totally agree with you. It is really such a good blend, like you said, because like after watching the cartoons, you're sitting there, you're like, oh man, I miss like the live action Stooges bits and stuff, and then like boom, that comes on, and you're like, oh, all right. And the cool thing is like they'll like they sometimes even in the opening segments they have redone a couple of previous Stooges shorts from like back in the with the Curly and Shemp years. They redo it as openings now with Curly Joe, and then like at some point someone will like stop and turn and be like, hey, while we're trying to figure this out, why don't you guys check out the next cartoon? And then like boom, the next one comes in. And the one thing I will, it probably gets even more like, because like I probably would have put it at a B minus, but it becomes a B because of the theme song. That theme song is so catchy, and I'm gonna play it right now. Future Nick, where you listening on from the future time, play the theme song right now.
Yeah, theme song is a bop.
But yeah, so on that note, Grant, why don't you tell people where they can find you? I know you do some streaming. I don't know if you still stream or...
Yeah, I don't really stream as much anymore. My primary source would be Twitch. I usually stream on my Xbox, just at Flub My Tub, just a small gaming channel. Like I said, I don't really do all that too much. I would love to get back into it. It's been like really busy with work and all that other stuff. And yeah, Flub My Tub.
You can check out our sister show, Welcome to the Goon Show, by Plug and Nug Radio. The Plug and Nug Radio podcast. Just type Plug My Nug in, and it should bring you there. You can definitely check us. I'm on it. Grant's on it. Santi and Andrew. It's a good time. We read different weird news articles of the week, and then we all just kind of goof off about it. And we really have goofed off. For me to close out the show, I guess, I just want to say this show is a part of the Stooges history, whether you really want it or not. But I think it does hold a really good, wholesome spot in it. Especially like even during the live action segments, like you see the kids and the Stooges will be doing like an act in a bunch in front of a ton of kids, and like they're generally laughing too, with that belly laugh. Like it still makes me laugh. I enjoyed watching these episodes, getting Grant into them. We'll probably watch even more just randomly now that we don't just have to watch it for the episode. Other than that, remember the 3 golden rules: save the planet, fight pollution, and be good to yourself. Thank you guys. Have a good morning, good night, and we love you.
Same as Nick. Have a good morning. Have a good evening. And we're about to go watch some Three Stooges right now. So we are signing off.
So, ladies, please don't attack me online. I'm just a sweet bald boy.
Oh, I'm a clown.